Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. We're back with another episode of You on Joe this week. That's right. This is Joe on Joe, the podcast where we've covered all the things. We've covered the cartoons. We've covered the comic books. We've covered the PSAs. We did Cold Slither Behind the Rock. We did G.I. Columbo. And now we're in the middle of doing You on Joe. That is right. It is all about you, the listener, your favorite thing about G.I. Joe. That means I need to hear from you. Whatever it is you love about G.I. Joe, I want you to contact me and we'll get you on this podcast. Please reach out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Joe and Joe Pod, or you can send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. And let me know whatever it is the topic we want to cover. The more specific, the better. We will absolutely have a blast talking about it. I promise you, you will leave the conversation smiling, and not just because we will then be friends. Now, while you're online, please give me a rate and review on your podcast app, whatever it is you're listening to. Every review helps grow the show. Or if you're so inclined, you can visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/JoeOnJoePod. You can help keep the show afloat that way. And speaking of that, let's give a lot of love to our fabulous sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. In the beginning of time, the smallest organism gained sentience and thought to itself, I really need a good meal. Then, a bunch of other stuff happened, and finally the Lumiere brothers started showing movies in France. This was all the inspiration that fellow broadcasters Brad, Keith, and Ben needed to combine these two primal needs into the Movies and a Meal podcast. The Movies and a Meal is one of the most casual and relaxing film talk podcasts you could ever listen to. These three friends enjoy a good meal together while talking all about the movies. And not just reviews, they do favorite lists, comparison discussions, genre talks, anything and everything that you can think of. They've even broken their solemn promise inherent in the name and branched out into TV talk. So I love the variety of films they bring to the table. They cover new releases, classics, cult films, often in one episode. It's really a delight to listen to, and it has something for every movie fan out there to enjoy. So if you're looking to grow your podcast library, if you eat meals, and if you've ever seen a movie, then you should give Ben, Keith, and Brad a listen and subscribe to the Movies and a Meal podcast. They've been a great sponsor to this show. I love the Movies and a Meal podcast, and I'd like all of you to love them too. So this is part 2 of my in-depth conversation with Jeremiah Stafford, screenwriter, raconteur, collector about town, about the 1984-85 G.I. Joe catalog. As we covered in part 1, it had everything. You heard us talk about how it launched the line. We went through which figures we had, which ones we wanted, which ones we got on mail away. That deep conversation continues on the backside, mostly with vehicles. And I think you're going to find a lot of personal conversation, a lot of personal touches. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of you guys, because we all have these similar memories deep in our collective childhoods. So it's conversations like this that really brings them forth. Whatever part of the country you were raised, however you were raised, we all have this in common. So that's why I really love conversations like this, where it gets to the heart of it. You hear us remembering, oh yeah, I had this or I had that, or, unlocking things about our, childhood Joe adventures that don't stay at the front of the mind, but after a little bit of conversation, these things kind of unclog, and then they start spewing forth. So I think you're going to love it. I really enjoyed it. Of course, Jeremiah is a good friend, and I enjoy talking G.I. Joe with him constantly on a daily basis. We always talk. But to have him on the show and to share that with you listeners is really special. So please sit back and listen to part 2 of the 84-85 catalog discussion with Jeremiah Stafford. So flipping the catalog over, here we go to your man, your favorite guy, the guy that every time I see something cool, I make sure you know about it. And your reply is usually, of course, I learned about this 2 days ago. Zartan, the master of disguise, absolutely top 5 G.I. Joe / Cobra characters of all time. Probably in the top 5 action figures, period, of all time.
Just a legend. Zartan is just a legend. He, to me, my all-time favorite, definitely my all-time favorite bad guy in the G.I. Joe universe. and just so much quality to him, just such a unique look. And but this actually started an interesting trend. So, and this started in '84, but you notice every year they try to introduce a new big bad, right? So '82 you had Cobra Commander, '82 you had Destro, '83 you got Zartan, or I'm sorry, '84 you got Zartan, '85 you got the Crimson Guards, or Crimson Twins, I should say, and then Serpentor and so on and so forth. But '84, typically your main characters in G.I. Joe were main assortment, single card release guys. Flint didn't come with a vehicle. Duke didn't come with a vehicle. Cobra Commander didn't come with a vehicle. The people who came with vehicles and came with accessory packs and things of that nature tended to be kind of your C-list characters. Wild Weasel's awesome, but he's not Storm Shadow. Thunder's great, but he's not Flint or Roadblock. This started something where every year for a big bad character, they put him in something that was a slightly deluxe package. So it's Zartan, he comes in a box, he comes with the chameleon. And up until that point, there was no mainline guy that would be at that tier of a character to be the top villain or the top whatever that was sort of packed out that way. But starting from that point, the next year you got the Tomax and Zaymot deluxe package sold together. Then you got Serpentor deluxe package sold with the Air Chariot. Then you got Globulus deluxe package sold in a 3-pack. You got Destro deluxe package sold with the Iron Grenadiers Despoiler. Then what was it? Darklon was, I think, intended to be the big bad.
Yeah, it was like they had a great streak going. We'll give you a Globulus, but at least that had a movie tie-in, and then you hit Darklon.
And then you hit Darklon, which was supposed to be big bad for '89, and then you got Overlord, which was supposed to be the big bad for that year. So it fell apart there at the end, and then sort of banded.
It's like watching a hurdler in the like one of those hurdler gonna trip videos where you're like, he's doing it. He caught his foot on the one, and then he tries to recover in the second one. And now he's on his face.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a new strategy, and that was a new way of doing in this, because up till this point, if you had a top tier character, he was on a single card.
Yeah.
Which also, speaking of, raises an interesting thing, because this image is Zartan, this artwork is Zartan, wasn't his packaging artwork. His packaging artwork was the box art. So if you go to ever countries where it was released as a single carded figure, they used this artwork.
Right.
But for us as kids, we saw this artwork because of this catalog.
You're right.
And it's embedded in our brains, not because it was on the shelves.
The floating face. Yeah, the floating face.
Yes, this was from catalog and ever supplemental things, but not the main artwork that came with the figure.
So cool. So you're right. Yojo does absolutely have the price point, $4.20. So about twice as much, if not maybe just about maybe $1.25, $1.50 more, depending on your
so still obtainable.
Yeah.
But more than a figure, just a deluxe offering.
It's this is the topic is the catalog. So we could save the Zartan talk because there's so much to talk about him. But
sure, yeah.
His vehicle even disguised itself.
Oh yeah,
his vehicle turned into something that would be unassuming to G.I. Joe guys. That was so brilliant.
And it fits with who he is. It all just really ties in together so well.
$225 would have been the retail price for the regular Joes. So yeah, about twice as much. $4.20. So yeah, an additional $2 or $1.95. But yeah, the observation is great. This is the start of the deluxe figure. But again, not breaking the bank, because you're also getting so much value with it, and obviously conceptually just so cool because one could change faces but also change colors and that that whole thing, and the unique part of like his pieces, his knee pads and everything that would and his chest piece that would snap on and off. That was that was all the pieces of play that we talked about how kids like to be tactile. So we know Zartan's a winner. We'll move on to the next section, which is actually, because of the way this thing folds, it's actually the upside down section, but it's telling kids about collecting flag points. Is this the first mention of flag points?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm pretty sure that was in previous catalogs.
Okay, good.
Or yeah, it must have been, because Duke was originally a mail away.
Right.
And there was a mail away Cobra Commander, and Major Blood was a mail away.
So the first Cobra Commander mail away, that was with flag points too, or is that just a regular mail away?
I think flag points was there from the beginning.
Was it?
I'm sure someone listening will fact check me. But,
yeah. So don't get upset, listeners. I'm sorry. We're just this is off the cuff conversation about this stuff. It looks like it started in '82. So they were there from the start. Yeah, you're totally right. This is a great rundown of how important flag points were. Were you a flag point guy?
Oh yeah, and especially as you said, trying to go back and chase those 82, 83 figures. A lot of times the only way you could get them was if they were offered as mail aways, which some of them were, some of them weren't. But that's how I got Stalker, 82 Stalker. That's how I got, as I said, Thunder earlier. Obviously, not that far off from this. That's how you get mail away Sergeant Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, actually, mail away Sergeant Slaughter was its own. It had its own form. I think that wasn't. Maybe there was flag points also involved. I don't recall. I
had the tank Slaughter. So when the mail away one came through again, I was like, I don't need another Slaughter. I got a Slaughter.
Yeah.
Well,
I got the mail away Sergeant Slaughter first, and then then they announced the tank Slaughter, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll not get that tank.
Yeah.
Which,
I use my mail away points a lot. I know I got Duke via mail away. I know I got the jump via mail away. I got the which I think was this year, wasn't it? Yeah, I got the I had the Manta that was a mail away. I believe the Manta was my first one. And Hooded Cobra Commander was a mail away, right?
Hooded was mail away.
Yeah,
yep.
I got Hooded mail away. That might have been all the mail aways that I did, but I just, the anticipation of that, like when the Manta first came, my heart was like pounding. I was so excited to get that Manta in the mail.
The catch for me, and I got caught on it actually a couple of times, was so it'd be like, I think if I recall correctly, and I have all these old catalogs, so I could look it up but if I recall correctly, it was usually a combination of flag points plus, maybe $1.
Right. Shipping. Yeah.
For the thing. I think not just for shipping though. I think it was like $1 and then like maybe an extra $1.99 to ship it.
Oh, okay.
I think it was something along those lines, or maybe it was, for whatever reason, there was something where if I could raise enough money to order all this stuff, there was slight savings versus just getting one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had enough flag points at any given point to get like everything that was being offered at that moment on that catalog. But it's like, okay, well, I can get the Major Blood. Now I can get the Thunder. But if I can get a couple more bucks, I can throw in Stalker with this.
Yeah.
And trying to do it economically. And then there was at least once where I didn't pay attention to the expiration date.
Oh.
So by the time I got the money and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to do this. Let me go fill out the form and send away for it all. It had already passed.
Now, did they refund you the money back or did you just never get anything?
I noticed it before I sent it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I had an experience earlier in my childhood where a TIE fighter broke off. The connecting piece to the TIE fighter broke. And, we middle-class family, instead of, getting a new one, which was expensive, my mom and I crafted a letter sent to, I guess would have been Mattel, right? And or Kenner. No,
Or
would have been
Kenner,
Kenner.
yeah.
Yeah. So we mailed a letter to Kenner that we got some address probably off the packaging, and was just saying, hey, this broke. We just got this TIE Fighter. Can you please replace it? I pestered the mailman about, did you get anything from Kenner? Probably for 2 years. And we didn't send them any money. It wasn't an order form. And, I'm not blaming them. You know what I mean? It wasn't an official thing, but it was just my mom and I had the idea to mail away to get a replacement one. So that was my first experience in dealing with postal service and big companies like this. So fast forward to me being a 9-year-old, and I do this and it actually works. That's why I was so excited about getting the Manta. And then I got the Duke, and then I got Cobra Commander and all that stuff, because it was a functional process. And again,
Right.
not crapping on Kenner. That was us trying to, replace something. But as a kid, you don't understand that. You just think, well, why haven't they sent me a new one? G.I. Joe, they sent it to you and you got it on time, and it was awesome.
And I don't remember ever having a problem where like you sent it and it might take forever.
Yeah.
But it got to you.
Yeah,
There
was a great program. It was a great program.
Like there's times today where I order something and like it just never shows up.
Yeah.
And like eventually you have to write the company and they're like, oh,
Well, listen, there's a lot of companies that they take pre-orders on things, and they don't know that they're going to get the product, and then they'll just cancel your pre-order at the last minute because they'll be like, oh, and now I'm not saying they take your money, but they'll cancel the pre-order, and you're like, well, dude, I've been waiting for you to fulfill this for 6 months. Now you've canceled my pre-order. That kind of stuff would never fly, and did never fly with G.I. Joe. It was you ordered it, you sent it. I would imagine a world where, had you sent your money in and your flag points in for that expired one, they either would have found one to send to you, right? Or sent you a comparable, whatever the moment of the time was, as a thing, and a little note saying, hey, we ran out of Duke. Here's the Super Trooper or whatever.
I mean, they wouldn't have ignored it.
Right.
That's for sure.
That's 100% that. Yeah. 100% that. That's awesome.
I mean, just literally, I think 2 weeks ago, Walmart canceled. I'd ordered a bunch of wrestling exclusive figures and those carded classified waves of figures that are coming out, like the Zartan and the Storm Shadow and the Snake Eyes. They canceled all of them. And I went on the website instantly and was like, well, I can still order the Joes.
Yeah.
The wrestlers were out, pre-sold out. But why are you canceling them, but you're still offering them for pre-order?
Mm-hmm.
Their system's just screwing.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Yeah. And like, there's nobody that really, they're too big to fail.
It's got to be a function of back in the day. It was a lot more manual. It wasn't computerized, right? It had to be someone in Rhode Island getting these letters, processing them, right, putting them on a spreadsheet somewhere. And just keeping track of them. Now it's someone forgets to mark a checkbox as being in inventory, and then every other automated process cycles through, and it kicks out and sends emails to everyone saying we've canceled your order.
Yeah,
I'm not pointing fingers, but we will not name names, Jeremiah, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
That I know personally experience with, and it's like, it's because everything's set up to be automated. There's no review process because there's so much to do and there's so few people to do it, that this stuff happens so frequently, and it just wouldn't have happened back then.
Well, and also, because part of the thing back then was, the worst thing in the world was to disappoint your customer.
Yes.
Because that's what you're into business for.
Mm-hmm.
And now the worst thing in the world is to disappoint your shareholders.
Correct.
In the stock market.
Yep.
And they care more about, these extra steps might mean less profits and less of a reflection on the market. So,
right.
It's a shift in priorities.
Boo. Well, let's move on. Let's shift our priorities to the next section of this calendar. I keep saying calendar. This catalog, which is the official G.I. Joe Mobile Strike Force application form. So this is the fan club, right?
This is the fan club.
Were you ever a member?
Yeah. Did you?
No.
I signed up for it, and I did not realize at the time that it was only a year-long membership. So I kept waiting for like more stuff to keep coming. I didn't realize it was a one and done type scenario.
What did you get with it? What came?
So I did end up doing it a couple of times once I did figure out that it was multiple times. There was a poster. There was a new like a dossier newsletter. I still have all this stuff.
Awesome.
There was an iron-on G.I. Joe logo that you could iron on a blank T-shirt the way that they used to do. With, there was a G.I. Joe membership card.
Cool.
I think there might have been a dog tag, or that possibly might have been a different offering, but a customized dog tag. Yeah, just a lot of stuff, but yeah, that one shipment came and then there was no ongoing follow-up.
Yeah. And that's what it was, right? You just got one shipment. You didn't get you didn't get stuff throughout the year. It was just a one time, here's your membership package. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. No, I never did that. And honestly, probably, and I'm not saying it was overpriced, but probably because it was $5.
It was $5.
$5 for the promise of I don't know what, like I'm like, oh, I could take that $5 and I can get 2 figures versus, yeah. Well, next,
that poster, it hung on my closet door.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Years. Yeah.
Next to that, then we have a section for some of the legacy stuff from the previous year. It's got the Falcon Cobra gliders, got the Pocket Patrol pack, which I absolutely had and still have to this day. The collector display case, which I've never had, but I've seen at shows lately, and I really want to grab one because I think it's so awesome. Where you could keep your file cards and your figures. You keep looks like about 12 figures in it.
Well, Joe, you got me beat on something because again, it's rare, but none of these things we're looking at right now are in my collection currently.
Oh, wow.
So I've been looking at that display case though.
Yeah.
And just, I think I've, maybe saw a couple of it were running cheap and placed my bids and didn't win them,
Yeah, I saw one live at a show and it was like, I was thinking about going back to get it just because. Yeah. Just because I do think it's really cool. I had the Vader. Did I have Vader or 3PO? I had Vader for Star Wars. So the idea of having that carry case was strong in my head. Never had the Viper gliders. That was never, and I would have. I loved gliders. I loved flight stuff. I lived in my bedroom was second floor. I used to drop my G.I. Joe parachute guys out the second floor, then run downstairs, get them, run back upstairs, and do it again. All the time. They would I would throw them in the sky too. So not only my second floor dropping them, but I would throw them up, and occasionally they would then get stuck on the roof. So then I'd have to climb out on the roof through the bathroom and get them off the roof. Yeah. So
yeah, those gliders are tough because
so fragile.
They didn't survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that, and like the 82 cardboard Cobra headquarters.
Oh, right. I never
that just did not survive.
When I was a kid, that Cobra headquarters was never in my purview. Because it was 82 and I wasn't into them that year. Mm-hmm. I never knew anyone with it. When they announced this a couple years ago, when they did that mock-up one, which I ended up getting from San Diego, which is a great set. I wish I had two because I'd love to open it. But I still got it in the box. Most of my stuff's in the box. I don't have any space. You know this. But I didn't even understand that existed when I was a child, because I knew no one who had it. And we used to go to, it was Sears, right?
I believe it was Sears.
Yeah, we did Sears all the time. And I knew of like the idea of Sears exclusives and everything, but I don't recall ever seeing the Cobra temple. I did have the paper-backed Tatooine bar, Mos Eisley bar cantina set.
Oh, right.
That did not survive. I ended up, what was left was a door and the base.
Right.
The cardboard part did not survive the years.
Yeah, so these gliders, I mean, that's something to where, as I'm getting down to being complete in, this 82 to 94 era of Joe, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, totally.
It's going to be a tough one.
Well, what I like about
got a ways to go before I get there, though.
Yeah, so. What I like about your collection, and you may not when you're talking here about complete, it sounds to me like you're talking like authentic original stuff. But I know we've had conversations in regards to We were just talking about the Indiana Jones figures. That new line that they came out with that reproed the old ones, which look amazing, and I love it. And I've opened those, and they're sitting on my desk, and they're great. But where you said you had the
the original Kenner.
Yeah, you have a few of the originals, but you're happy with the new repros because the originals are like so. What I dig is that you're not like crazy about like I won't get the new one to replace it. Like to make it look cool on the shelf, I'll totally get the new version. And keep hunting for the old one, but in the meantime, satisfy that itch.
Especially because I love Indiana Jones, but like that's not my number one toy line.
Right.
So, I'm still working on completing G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe, and maybe by the time I would get through that in about a dozen ever toy lines, I'd go. Now I'm ready to spend big money on getting the authentic Indiana
Marion
Jones
in her dress, yeah.
But in the meantime,
but if someone were to come out with a repro, because that's the other thing with these days with 3D printers and just the ability to reproduce things, if they were to come out with like a modern version of that glider, would you snap that up?
I mean, people have done it.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, they have. I mean, there's definitely repros of the gliders, and there's been like some small independent shows that have done them as like their little indie show exclusive,
fun.
Like unofficial stuff, but it's clearly the gliders. Maybe not just because I'm somebody who like once something's in my collection, I like to keep it in my collection.
Yeah.
And like I said, like with that Marion, if I ever did get to the point where I'm like ready to throw down money on the original one, that's so many years, if not decades away.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how much time we have on this earth left. We're not getting any younger, Joe.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ain't that the truth?
So, whereas with so I don't mind spending the money on that because I'll probably never get to crossing that off my list.
Yeah. I'm on a huge Indiana Jones nostalgia kick right now. I'm telling you, I'm so excited for this movie. I finally bought, and I looked at the copyright on it. 2007, these DVDs came out, and I've avoided them for years. I finally bought the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles on DVD because, one, they were on sale. So I think what always warded me off is they were always like $85, and I was like, really? But they were on sale recently, so I was like, absolutely, I'm getting them. I can't love Indiana Jones more. I need to have everything. Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, I think, even the repro gliders aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And as I said, when I buy something, it's sort of meant to stay in the collection. So I feel like I'll just put that, however much they cost for the repros, I'll put towards sooner versus later getting to finding the original.
So our next section in the catalog is it's a great section with some great toys, but it's mostly previous years, and they're kind of burying the lead here. It's the Fang and the Dragonfly, which obviously are all-timers, and actually really what they really are, they're iconic to the brands. The Fang is so iconic to Cobra, and the shape and the silhouette of the Dragonfly is really iconic to G.I. Joe. But then the Skyhawk is the third part, and that's the new vehicle in this mix. And the Skyhawk is a game changer because how versatile it was, how much it was used on the show, the fact that you could defy life and death by having two guys sit on your skis and fly at such high speeds without any kind of buckle. I don't know how
very vulnerable these feet.
I don't know how Spirit and Gung Ho survived this trip, but they did. I love the Skyhawk. I had a Skyhawk. The rotating engines, the VTOL aspect of it was great. It's like that year the line discovered VTOL, with the Rattler had it as well. And those seem like two toys, just like we talked about with the Whale and the Moccasin, where it's that concept of here's a bigger version and then here's a smaller version. So they gave the bigger version to Cobra of here's your VTOL aircraft, and then here's the G.I. Joe VTOL aircraft at a smaller price point, smaller playset, but they both still function essentially the same.
And, the Skyhawk was great because it was something that it got a lot of play with me. Like, it wasn't ever a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we talked about the Whale. You could talk about the Sky Striker, those are the greatest vehicles ever. But
Yeah.
with it being compact and iconic, you know, there were times when I'd play and it would be, I'm getting every character out and getting every playset and vehicle out and stationing them all wherever they need to be and all this stuff. And then there'd be times where it's just like, I'm just going to take Duke and Snake Eyes and a handful of Cobras, as many as I can fit, and just put Duke and Snake Eyes in jeopardy. But that Skyhawk would often be the one vehicle that like maybe they'd take with them on that mission or have access to or use as their escape.
Well, the Skyhawk also fit on the tactical battle platform, which was, you know, that was
a beautiful piece.
Yeah, that was a beautiful piece and a game changer there. It also fit in a kid's hand. We're talking about size and scale. You know, you needed for most people, you needed two hands to do the sky. I was a mutant, so I could do a Sky Striker with one hand. But most kids, you know, you needed two hands to do the Sky Striker, right? You could one hand the Rattler, but to do anything fun on the Rattler, you definitely needed two hands. With the Skyhawk, it was a one-hander, so you could do you could do Skyhawk Fang battles all day long.
The Skyhawk was also great because, you know, if you got to take a trip in the car, bring Skyhawk. You know?
I'm getting flashbacks, and I just looked up to confirm. I'm fairly positive I got the Skyhawk on mail order too. And in because they did it in '87. It says that it was a mail away in '87, and I absolutely know that I got it later in my collection. It wasn't one of my early vehicles. It was a later edition, probably after I got the battle platform, and I wanted one to sit on top of that. So I'll bet you I fairly positive I had a mail away Skyhawk.
Yeah, I think that was probably trying to remember. I think actually that was the Christmas I got the headquarters.
Oh, so good.
Because I didn't have a Dragonfly as a kid. I did have the headquarters, and I think the Skyhawk was sitting on the helicopter pad where the Dragonfly sort of meant to go.
Yeah. So then the next section, we've got our introduction to just a fabulous toy, and one that has stood the test of time. The iconography. That's the word. The iconography of the Rattler has absolutely stood the test of time. One, it is almost a 1-to-1 to the real Warthog.
Yeah.
And even in modern versions of, you know, as they've updated the look of G.I. Joe, whatever, they still draw Rattlers because they look so good, you know, like they don't modernize it. You know, you get your Slipstream and your X30, whatever. No, here's still a Rattler coming through because it's VTOL. It's got 1 million bombs on it. It's got places for 2 people to sit, both closed canopies. And it's just a menacing look of that's it. The Rattler's coming in, ball game.
And it's one of those things too, where because it was in its roots, it's a vehicle out of time.
Yep.
Therefore, it remains timeless.
Yep.
You know, because it's not a design based on the 80s that made sense in the 80s that now looks retro. It looked retro then. You know. So it still has that same effect.
Yeah.
40
and couple in G.I. Joe 35, when you read that book,
oh yeah,
then you cement the idea of Wild Weasel and the Rattler being an absolute ace in the sky, you know, pun intended, ace in the air, and you're like, well, of course this jet's going to be great. My landing struts broke early on, and I only ever had one Rattler, so the landing struts broke, and I never really got that. They got over that. I was never very happy with that. One of the pegs broke off. That was my
my canopy in the back seat snapped. It could sit on it, but as you're like flying it through the air, it'd fall off.
It would be when I think it was this toy. Well, either this or then, speaking of Indiana Jones, when you get to the Last Crusade and his dad shoots the tail of the plane.
Yep.
I think I learned from this toy. I think at some point I sought out to learn how they didn't just shoot their own plane, and that they had timing chains built in, that when that cockpit rotate, you know, in real like biplanes, real World War II biplanes, when that cockpit would rotate to a certain point, like a gun would rotate, the timing chain would kick in and it would stop firing for whatever the arc of the, whatever arc was needed. And then it
Make
would
sure you don't hit your own wing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember thinking that with this toy of like, how is he not shooting himself? And then seeing Indiana Jones, his dad just chew up the tail, which is a great scene. They got us, Junior. But I think I learned that from the Rattler. Yeah. And below it, we've got the Hiss tank, which obviously is great and came out the year prior. We've also got the Mobat, which is the OG. I never had a Mobat. No, I take that back. I never had a first-hand Mobat. I got a second-hand Mobat at some point, and I don't think the batteries ever worked in it. And I definitely didn't have Steeler that came with it. And then the Wolverine, which I never had. I've never had the Wolverine.
Yeah, I never had Wolverine, and I really, again, because I, love the vehicles, but had a slight more focus on, I need every character.
Mm-hmm.
That being the only chance to get CoverGirl bothered me for a long time as a kid. Because there were so few female characters.
Yeah.
And, but every single one of them was a well-defined part of the team. And, CoverGirl probably less, especially back then, less featured than any of the Arrow ones, but still,
Oh, speaking of that, I forgot to ask you for Zartan. Did you think that was his hair or a hood?
Oh, I thought it was a hood.
Oh, I thought it was his hair when I kid.
I
thought he had really weird hair.
As I say, the second I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is cool, like Dr. Doom vibes.
Oh yeah, totally. I always thought it was weird hair because I feel like on the toy, on the cartoon, it flowed like hair, like it was drawn more hair-like on the cartoon, which is, I guess, up for could be up for debate. But I was like, oh, that's his hair, and it's just really
I
really
can
odd.
see it because it didn't really curve around,
yeah,
at all. It just sort of flowed over the shoulder.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And I was like, what is it attached to? Yeah, so I never had the Wolverine, but it is a cool little vehicle, though. I really like it. Obviously, it's got all those missiles, similar to the Killer Whale. I've never really seen it, or at least I haven't really seen this. I haven't seen this catalog in a long time. But when you compare it next to the Mobat, it's like half size, so it's just like a little mini tread vehicle, that just brings missiles to the game. That's cool. In the comic and stuff, anytime I'd see it, I feel like it was always drawn like to scale with the Mobat. But when you see it like this, it's really just like missiles on wheels, or on treads, rather.
Yeah. The Wolverine. I was just trying to think about it as we were talking. I think that might have been the first vehicle I went back and bought as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a period of time where I wasn't into toy collecting. Like, I just didn't have, college and early career in film. You don't have a lot of disposable income. But I do remember, going to a comic book show where I was mostly just trying to spend whatever small amount of disposable income I had on comics, seeing that Wolverine for a good price and snatching it up.
Yeah. Well, those, and the Wolverine was the previous year. Let's see what the price point was for the Wolverine. It was $6.39.
Wow.
That's so crazy. She looks like a redhead to me. We've established in my household, my wife's like, I don't think I think I am some form of color, not blindness, but I think I see colors differently. My wife has held up things that she's like, this is green. And I'm looking at it going, that is blue. That is 100% blue. So I really do think I have some kind of like whatever issue with colors, because I look at some things and I absolutely don't see it as brown. It looks red to me.
Well,
anyway.
well, not to diverge, but I'm curious, you being such a giant comic and comic art fan, does that hold true when you're looking at the artwork?
Well, I don't know. I've never had anyone to compare it to.
Yeah.
Like no one reads it over my shoulder. So I look at things and I go, yeah, that's this color. And I just assume that that's color. I'm telling you, I had a sweater for years. I think I have trouble distinguishing between green and blue, because I had a sweater for years. I would wear it. It was striped green and blue. And I never noticed it until it got so faded that it was clear that it was a striped shirt. And I turned to my partner at the time and I was like, did you know this shirt was striped? And she said, yeah.
You didn't, right?
This shirt has been green. It's a green and blue striped sweater. And I was like, you're kidding me. I've been wearing this for 2 years. I thought it was just a green sweater or blue sweater, whatever color I thought. Yeah. So like, So I do think there's an issue there. Not that I care or it really comes into play, but listen, let's put it this way. Jeremiah, if we're ever in a situation where there's a bomb and they're like, cut the green wire or cut the blue wire, I got to call you.
Right.
I also don't see, my
advice will be just run.
Just run. Yeah. Joe, you're not going to get it right either way.
We're not going to get this guesswork done right.
I don't remember people's eye colors either. I don't see them very well. And Rebecca does, and she's always like, oh yeah, that girl's got green eyes or blue eyes or whatever. And I'm like, I have absolutely, she knows the color of my parents' eyes. I don't know the color of my parents' eyes. You know, it's yeah. So I think it's a color issue. And when I used to draw a lot and I studied art in school, I always worked in black and white. I never worked in color because I think instinctively I'm never comfortable working in color because of that. Anyway, we're diverging and we're nearing the end of this. By the way, Jeremiah, welcome to a 2-parter of You on Joe.
Oh, great.
So let's move on to the final portion of this amazing catalog. And we get the attack vehicles, and we've got the Vamp Mark II, which would have been a reissue, but new this year on the reissue, right?
No, I think that Vamp Mark II was 83.
Was it?
Am I mistaken?
Hold on. Let's go to 83. Vamp.
Oh no, you're right.
It's an 84. Yeah,
it is an 84. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a reissue Vamp, and we covered the Vamp on a UN Joe recently, and how versatile and such a great vehicle it is. So this would have been the reissue of the Vamp Mark II, and it would have been the first Stinger, which is just a recolored Vamp. So smart of Hasbro to make that money. I had a Stinger. I never had any version of the Vamp, missile or laser gun. What about you?
Yeah, I had the Stinger. Likewise, no version of the Vamp. Somewhere along the lines, I temporarily lost the missile back end of the Stinger. I don't know how, because I always took immaculate care of all my stuff. Mm-hmm. But somewhere I'd taken it off just to play with the Stinger a little bit differently, and there were years where I could not find where that piece went. And I had the missiles, I had the Jeep, I did not have the missile launcher.
Oh no.
Found it eventually.
Oh,
but yeah, but it was one of those. I actually think I found it. It might not have been until like I was off in college, and then I came back one year. So I think it got moved not by me, and that's how it got discovered again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have no idea where it was, but for years just could not find it.
Jer, I had that same experience with an Ewok watch that I got circa 1983. Got it for a gift for Christmas or Easter or something like that. And I wore it to bed, and it fell between the slats of my bed. It's called like a captain's bed with a big underneath thing, which is frankly where I stored my G.I. Joes once I, started putting them away when I got a little older. It fell between the slats of the construction of this bed so tightly, I did not find it until I was in my 20s, and I was cleaning out my bedroom as an adult to like pack things up. That thing was gone for 15 years. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. All things get found. So we've also got the Ram, the rapid fire motorcycle. Of course, that's a legacy vehicle, as well as the Polar Battle Bear. I had both those. My Ram immediately broke the sidecar part, and then I fell in love with the Silver Mirage then too, more than the Ram.
Yeah, as kids, did not have those. Yeah, I think again it was one of those things where thought they were awesome. If I had infinite money, would have gotten them, or infinite Christmas gifts would have gotten them. But I was looking at whatever came with a figure.
And rock and roll always was the de facto driver of the Ram. Always.
Oh yeah.
That was rock and roll's. That was rock and roll's whip. That was it. If you wanted to play with the Ram, rock and roll had to be a part of it.
I mean, every piece of. I can't. It's just even now. I mean, I know obviously that was used a million times in the animation, but instantly, like. The sequences I think of are with rock and roll.
Yeah, and what they
the
came with
conspiracy where he's driving.
Right, and in the classified they put him with Breaker, right?
They put it with Breaker.
which rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, Breaker don't drive a Ram. It's rock and rolls.
Yeah,
That's
that
rock
was
and
probably
rolls
just-
motorcycle.
That was probably just the move Breaker, though. They know rock and roll can sell on his own.
That is true. That is so true.
You know?
And the
Yeah.
final piece of the amazing catalog is, of course, a legacy, and one we've talked already a bit about, the Sky Striker, the XP 14F Sky Striker.
Yeah, so again, technically an 83 release, but still available the next year.
Did you back you backed the HasLab, right?
Yeah, so I got 2 of them, but just because really I wanted to keep a set of all the figures carded.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold the second actual Sky Striker. I was thinking about keeping it, but did you ever open your?
No, I don't have any room, man. If I open that stuff, it just gets destroyed, or just put in a different box. So no, it's still sitting on my
Here's
shelf.
the thing I don't understand. It's absolutely puzzling to me. And I talked to the Hasbro team like in San Diego, and they were talking about how if this was going to be packed. Like I had a side conversation with them, and we were talking about how this was going to be packed out. And the way they were describing it sounded so cool, but when you actually open it up, basically cut to the chase, the new Sky Striker, the wings are not in the box that the actual Sky Striker's in.
Really?
They're packed separately, with the missiles also packed separately, the figures obviously packed separately, but the vintage style box does not contain the wings to the Sky Striker.
That's so weird.
So they're somewhere else in the bigger case construction that next to the figures, next to the ever add-on pieces.
That's
the flight stand.
Is it easy? Do you know? Is it easy to put together, or is it?
Yeah. So I assembled
time?
one. I assembled one, but I was weighing whether or not to keep one mint in box, and then I'm like, well, this is sort of pointless because the mint in box version is not the entire vehicle.
You would keep it in you would keep it in the box that isn't really in the box.
It's half a vehicle in a box, and then a bunch of pieces just sitting in a box that's open by getting to.
It's funny. It's like I didn't see that. The Snake Eyes Storm Shadow 3 3/4 repros that they put like the dual set together, which are great and lovely, but then they didn't package all the extra weapons in those.
But that I understand
because they wanted it to look like the original.
The original ones didn't come with all that.
That's true. Yeah. So I just threw them in my star case, so that's floating loose in the star case.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just a weird. I don't get it. It seems like it should be able to fit. You could have certainly designed it to where you could have fit them in. But
I had one Sky Striker as a kid, and it was always in play. I loved it. The front strut broke really early. But I loved it so much. I figured there was just one of the peg. There were the 2 prongs and the 1 prong in the front. One of the 2 prongs broke off, so it was only being held instead of by 3 prongs. The little white piece, that kind of kept everything together. It was only being held by the 2 prongs, so it would hold most. If I put it up, it would hold. But if I ever popped the wheel down, it would always pop off.
Yeah.
So it was an iffy proposition.
Mine, held together great. I don't remember anything, needing to be replaced at any point.
I loved it though, man. That was so great. And what a great logo. Ace, awesome. The parachutes on the seat. What a nice touch, man.
I did notice it is, especially comparing it to the new one, the Sky Striker is slightly discoloring over time. It's sitting on my flag next to the new one.
On your flag, and so casually.
Yes, this guy's got to mention flag while we're at it. But yeah, it's slightly discoloring. My Ace just recently really went yellow.
Oh,
my vintage Ace.
Oh no!
So I'm gonna have to peroxide that at some point. Sort of work on it.
But yeah, so that's it. So that's it, Jeremiah, for the 84-85 catalog.
These were things that every year it was so exciting to get. There were sort of 2 things, or 3 things, I guess. You'd get those come Christmas time, those Sears catalogs or JCPenney's catalogs where you'd sit there and circle the things that you wanted your parents to get for Christmas and put your Christmas wish list together. But the other two things would be, come that summer or early part of the fall when the new products would come out, the new toy line figures would come out. And it would be like, okay, I got to get one of these figures to take home so I can just look at everybody on the back on the cross-sell art and figure it out. And I got to pick like one vehicle so I can get access to that catalog and just absorb it all and look at it over again and say, oh, I got to get this. So I got to get that. And I mean, those were just super exciting times. And the first time I saw it, this catalog came with my Zartan. And just instantly, like every year, though, I would prioritize getting at least one vehicle as soon as possible so that I could get to that catalog.
So true. Well, your appreciation for and adoration of this content, this catalog specifically, shines through with every word you put out, Jeremiah. There's been an inflection in your voice of just sheer joy when talking about this stuff. I can't thank you enough for giving me all this time to really dig into this. It's always so fun to speak with someone like yourself who both is knowledgeable about it, but just loves it. And just there's this childhood gleam that comes out in your voice that I appreciate it so much. And I know my listeners do too.
Well, I mean, it's so much fun to go back and it's so much fun to think about this stuff. And, we don't, or at least I don't, I don't spend a lot of time having these conversations. Oddly enough, probably 90% of people in my life don't even realize I have a G.I. Joe room. But it's just so good to revisit and go back and have those memories again.
Tremendous work. Well, Jeremiah Stafford, thank you so very much. Personally, I'll talk to you soon. I'm sure we'll be texting by morning. But always a pleasure to have you on Joe. Such a great episode, multiple episodes of You on Joe here. I love this catalog. Listeners, if you have passion for this stuff too, if you love the 85, 86 catalog, if you love the early ones, they're out there. We'll do the same kind of deep dive because it is a memory lane that I love going down. And thank you again, Jeremiah, for going down with me.
Absolutely. And yo, Joe.
Now we all know a whole lot more about the 84-85 G.I. Joe catalog. And Joeing is half the battle.